Welcome to our session, everyone. My name is George Bunch. I'm a professor at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and I'm pleased to be the co-PI of an IES-funded project that you'll hear a little bit more about later in today's panel. I'd first like to acknowledge Dr. Nicole Edgecombe at the Community College Research Center, Teachers College at Columbia University, who is the PI of the project. And Nikki is leading one of the other sessions in this conference, so she's not able to be part of our recorded remarks today. But we are joined by Kylie Kinner, Julia Ruffman, and Jorge Mahecha, who will be speaking with you about the work of this project a little bit later on in this presentation. And I'm really pleased to be able to moderate this session, focusing on one city, Chicago, to explore the education pathways of students who come to schools and colleges in the process of developing English, which is, of course, still the primary language of instruction in most K through 12 and post-secondary academic settings in the United States. The population we're focusing on today are students who, in the K through 12 setting, come from homes where languages other than English are spoken, and who, on the basis of English language proficiency tests they're given when they enter the K through 12 system, are classified as English learners. And today we have the privilege of being joined in this session by Rebecca Vanderlack Navarro from the Latino Policy Forum and Marisa de la Torre from the Consortium on School Research at the University of Chicago, who will focus on students classified as English learners in K through 12 schools, how these students do in school after being reclassified as fluent English proficient, and some of the institutional and community partnerships, especially in Chicago, designed to foster these students' transitions into higher education and professional pathways. And a quick note on terminology. As you may know, there are a number of critiques of the term English learner, given the term's focus on English rather than the wider range of linguistic resources that students bring with them. And so undoubtedly, you've heard alternative terms used, such as multilingual learners or emergent bilinguals. And I just want to clarify, we do use the term English learner specifically to describe students who carry this federally mandated classification in K through 12 schools. It's important to be able to study and understand the population that is classified with this label and some of the consequences that the label itself, positive and sometimes negative, provides for this student population. But we also in this session today explore a critical point of access post K through 12, a critical point of access into higher education and professional pathways for both students who were classified as English learners in K through 12 schools and may have been reclassified as fluent English proficient, but still come to post-secondary institutions where someone is determining that they are still in need of English language support, whether it is a testing process, a referral from instructors, or from students' desire to work on their English on their own. And of course, at the post-secondary level, colleges also, and especially community colleges, which we'll be talking about later on in this session, also have a number of other students who haven't come from the K through 12 US system, of course, including more recent adult immigrants who are either just recently arriving or adult immigrants who have lived in the United States for a number of years and are finding community college to continue their English language education or their professional development, community-based needs, and of course, post-secondary opportunity. So it's helpful to be precise about the language backgrounds as well as the educational backgrounds of the multilingual learners served throughout the systems you'll hear about today. And that's what we'll attempt to do. And really, it's the complexity of this population, both in K through 12 and into higher education, that we really want to highlight today, as well as the complexity of the needs of the students, the multiple different potential pathways that students take into, through, and beyond their formal education, the challenges and opportunities encountered through these different pathways, and the supports that institutions are attempting to provide, and of course, the challenges that remain for us all collectively to address in order to provide equitable, just, and effective educational and career pathways for multilingual learners throughout the United States. And so to get started, I will turn it over to Rebecca van der Leck Navarro for our first presentation.
So I'm Dr. van der Leck Navarro, and I direct the Latino Policy Forum's Education Department. And the vision of our department is that Latinos and English learners from early childhood through college receive equitable opportunities leading to economic prosperity. And I'm here today specifically to discuss how our research policy practice partnership with the University of Chicago's Consortium of School Research has created critical policy and practice change in Chicago and Illinois. Illinois public school enrollment for 2022-23 shows a current decline in the overall student population, but an uptick in the number of students learning English. In fact, since 2018, the English learner student population has increased by 10%. Most of these students are Spanish speaking and they're young. They're concentrated in the preschool to third grade range. Chicago Public Schools is where Illinois has its greatest concentration of English learners. Current and former English learners comprise 1/3 of students in Chicago Public Schools. And like across the nation, this student group is growing. Public data, however, shows an incomplete picture of EL academic performance. English learners' academic progress has long been insufficiently tracked and misleadingly reported by school accountability systems. According to these systems, English learners consistently appear to be behind their native English-speaking peers academically. Well, the consortium put out a report called English Learners in Chicago Public Schools, A New Perspective. And it contradicts many misconceptions regarding English learners, including that they're a drain on the system and do poorly academically. By collecting more specific data over the long term, the study offers empirical evidence to the contrary. With proper support, English learners not only perform far better academically than current standards suggest, but in fact outperform their native English-speaking peers. The narrative of English learners in America has been a deficit-based narrative, when it should be an asset-based one. So this research was a longitudinal study, and it looked at more than 18,000 English learners retrospectively. 90% of those students were Latinos, and they looked at it from kindergarten through 8th grade and 3 9-year cohorts of students. The study also captured more than tests. It looked at things like attendance and grades and core subject areas. More than 76% of Chicago Public School students who began in kindergarten as an EL became proficient in English by 5th grade, and they had higher attendance, math test scores, and core course grades than their peers who were never classified as ELs. So we started to ask ourselves at the forum, how can we move this research into action? What can we do about it? Well, then we were involved in a second study that came out. In September of 2021, there was another report about English learners in Chicago Public Schools, an exploration of the influence of preschool and how that would influence the early grades. And the study looked at more than 14,000 ELs in preschool, another 16,000 K through 3. And it found that English learners who attend preschool, especially full day, not half day, full day, starting at the age of 3 with bilingual programs, had higher attendance, reading, math grades, higher math test scores than their English learner peers at 3rd grade who did not attend preschool. They were also more likely to demonstrate English language proficiency. And for the English learners whose parents declined bilingual services in kindergarten, those kids had lower English language proficiency, attendance, grades, and test scores by the end of 3rd grade. And this is important because Illinois is one of the few states that mandates bilingual instruction beginning at age 3, where we're assessing English language proficiency, mandating instruction in the home language while building English, and requirements for teachers to have specialized skill sets. Also, the study found that if you start school with the really low level of English language proficiency, this was related later to lower academic performance, and that was measured by test scores. And it also found that ELs with identified disabilities had lower English language skills than their native peers, and most of these students had lower attendance. So with this study too, we were wondering about all these factors and how it might influence policy and practice. So that was our next step. And our first recommendation was that federal ESSA guidelines for state accountability and state departments of ed, local school leaders must monitor the progress of children's English language proficiency in the early years. And we've been working on that at the state level and within Chicago Public Schools. Also, that federal ESSA guidelines, and we got this in Illinois state accountability plans, and along with local school district analysis, must include the collection of longitudinal data, both current ELs and then also follow those kids once they exit services. So once they're proficient in English and no longer receiving bilingual ESL, we want to know, how are those kids doing? We've also continued to work with the State Board's English Learner Statistical Report that goes to our General Assembly, our Illinois State Report Card, because we want to capture former ELs and capture how they're doing academically. And based on the second study focused on early childhood, this has been big. Our governor just announced big plans around preschool expansion. We know Biden has been talking about this. And so we've been able to take this wonderful research and advocate that policymakers and district leaders provide, expand, and prioritize access for English learners beginning at age 3 for 2 full years of preschool with those bilingual services. And we've also worked on a national dissemination, working with a national media firm, producing a number of fact sheets and videos, and we even worked with the Biden transition team. We also were asking ourselves, how could we use this research to influence district leadership? And so we put together what's called an administrator academy, or a micro-credential with job-embedded tasks. And we used the research for that training so that district leaders would think about using longitudinal data within their districts, capturing those former ELs, monitoring the little ones, especially the ones that are coming in with low English language proficiency. How can we prioritize those kids with seats in full day pre-K? Informing leaders about the negative impact for English learners when their parents refuse services. And we also included a number of job-embedded activities, like looking at bias, attitudes towards ELs, program avail, EL student performance and accountability, and then forming school improvement plans with a key goal for ELs. We also at the forum, we are passionate about parents having access to research and knowing what it means for their child's education. In fact, parents, immigrant parents, were the first group we went to release the findings of both of those studies. We want parents to know that full day early childhood education, beginning at age 3, that offers bilingual programming is critical to their child's long-term success. And refusing services is going to be detrimental. If a child has special needs, they also have a right to a bilingual education. They don't have to choose between special education and bilingual. They can have both. And in our state of Illinois, if you have a bilingual program, you have to have a bilingual parent advisory council. This has been a beautiful relationship, partnership for a lot of our dissemination activities. We've created a number of online resources, videos, we do workshops in person, and we've even started to translate some of our videos and worksheets into Mandarin, Polish, and Arabic. It's been really exciting. And now we're moving into a new phase where the consortium is going to be doing more studies on current and former ELs at the high school level. Current ELs that maybe are newcomers and some that are long-term ELs, those kids that never exited, along with former ELs. We're going to look at high school graduation, college enrollment, 2-year persistence. And my role, and this is what I did in the other 2 studies, is convening Chicago-based stakeholders and state-level stakeholders, stakeholders to provide insights into the study, but also to partner on dissemination. And we've brought together district leaders, school guidance counselors, peer advocates, philanthropy, and English learner directors from other districts. I can't say enough. This research policy practice partnership has been transformative for the forum's advocacy by bringing together practitioners early on as the study is forming, and then later having research to disseminate and inform policy recommendations has been a critical agent for state and district policy change, and along with practice implications. This partnership has produced valuable tools for linguistically and culturally diverse families, and we are excited to continue this partnership and watch it grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So my goal today is to walk you through some of our work painting a picture of what the educational attainment of English learners in Chicago public high schools look like. So this is part of our work supported by an IES grant. I want to acknowledge that Elaine Allensworth is the PI of the work, and I'm the co-PI. And we have a large group, a big team behind the work that we are undertaking. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge, as George was saying, we are using English learners for consistency because Chicago Public Schools, CPS, uses the term, but we acknowledge that there is a controversy using this term. So English learners are those students who are the native language is different from English, and they're in the process of acquiring the academic skills in English necessary to fully participate in an English-based classroom. Why do we focus in high school? As Rebecca was saying, we have a work, in prior grades. We've been listening from some of our advisory group members that high school is a group of students. Years in high school are a group of students where we haven't paid much attention, mainly maybe because the vast majority of years the classification tends to happen in earlier grades, and as they demonstrate proficiency in English, they actually become former years. They are no longer classified as years. The concern also is that active years graduate from high school at lower rates, and even when they graduate from high school, they enroll in college at lower rates. We feel that the progress, experiences, and the achievement of these students is poorly understood, in part because when we look at publicly available data based on active years, it doesn't really show the diverse academic and linguistic needs that they might have, right? And on top of that, we sometimes lack information from former years. Once they lose the classification, we don't really see much data out there for them. So are they still doing well in high school? We saw in prior work that they were doing pretty well in K-8. For this work, we are looking at 3 cohorts of students right now, close to 80,000 students in CPS that graduated recently from high school. And this is kind of the groups that we are going to be following throughout the presentation. So if you see around 10% of students at the beginning of 9th grade are classified as active ELs, all our classifications are based on where they were at the beginning of 9th grade. And among that group, we distinctly can see 3 subgroups. The largest one is the long-term ELs, those students that have been classified as ELs in CPS for more than 6 years. And part of them don't have an individualized education plan, but a lot of them, almost half of them, have an individualized education plan at the same time as being classified as ELs. And then the rest are, among the active ELs, are late arriving ELs, students who have been in CPS for fewer than 6 years, and actually more than half have arrived in CPS either in 8th grade or 9th grade. So very recent arrivals to CPS. And then a large group of students, almost a quarter of our cohorts in 9th grade, are actually former ELs. They had been classified ELs before, had demonstrated English proficiency, they are former ELs, and we want to know how they are doing in high school. Just a quick view of how the sample looks like. Most ELs in CPS are more likely to be Latinx and came from low-income backgrounds. I want to highlight a couple of things from this table just to show you how different maybe the subgroups look like from each other. If you look at the late arriving, which is the column to your right, you will see that even though they are more likely to be free and reduced price lunch, 80% of them receive or are eligible for free and reduced price lunch. That's a lower number compared to other ELs if you look at the numbers across the board. But it's also true that even though they are more likely to be Latinx, more than half of them are, it's also true that they are more likely to be white or Asian students. Long-term ELs, if you look at the column next to the late arriving to your left, you will see that 65% of them are male. And this is actually true if you actually look at other students that have IEPs in high school. We see a vast, many of them, almost 2/3 being male students. So let's go through different outcomes to paint a picture of the attainment. So you are going to see a series of graphs that just look like this one with the 5 different groups and a dashed line that represents the district average. So we are looking here freshmen on track, which is related to graduation, 4-year graduation. Students are on track if they have accumulated enough credits to move to 10th grade and no more than 1 semester F. And what you see, probably what jumps at you, is that the long-term years with no IEPs are less likely or different from the district average in terms of these numbers, right? But all the other groups look very similar to each other and very similar to the district average. When we look at 4-year graduation rate, which is like the first marker that you want to see when you are thinking about college success for students, is, again, long-term years with no IEP, we see lower graduation rates. And now we see that the long-term years with IEPs are showing lower graduation rates, despite having a good outcome in terms of freshmen on track in 9th grade, right? I think to notice one thing that you're going to see over and over again is that the long-term years with IEPs tend to perform really similarly to other students with IEPs, right? So we see the same pattern. They do well in 9th grade in terms of on track. By the time 4 years later, they have lower numbers in terms of graduation, right? So something happened during those high school years. All other students, former years, do well in high school, right, in terms of these outcomes. And actually the late arriving years do actually quite well as well in terms of these outcomes. So if we move to college enrollment, this is immediate college enrollment among the high school graduates. So students are more likely to finish a degree or get a credential if they immediately enroll in college. We now see the same theme again, right? Long-term years seem to have more issues, having lower graduation college enrollment compared to the district average. However, the long-term years with IEPs look kind of similar to other students with IEPs. When we divide these between two-year college enrollment and 4-year college enrollment, we see a couple of patterns. On the left, we have 2-year college enrollment, and what we see is like all ELs are more likely to enroll in 2-year colleges than never ELs or the district average, right? And actually, it's the first time that we see long-term ELs with IEP doing differently in this outcome compared to other students with IEPs. All ELs seem to be more likely to enroll in 2-year colleges. And on the right-hand side, we have 4-year college enrollment. At that point, we see that most of the active ELs have lower 4-year college enrollment compared to the district average. Former ELs tend to enroll similarly in 4-year colleges, but more likely to do so in 2-year colleges. So one thing that we were wondering is like, are these patterns? We know that many decisions go into enrolling in college, right? But one of them is what are your academic qualifications, right? That sometimes determine your access to college. So we look at 2 different data points here, 2 different outcomes. One is cumulative high school GPA on the left-hand side, and the composite SAT that students take in 11th grade. And this is only among high school graduates. I have to notice that GPA, we do not have data for charter schools, so the numbers are a little bit lower for the students we can follow there. So 2 things. One is if you look at former ELs, their academic qualifications look very similar to never ELs, right? However, we see distinct college enrollment patterns. When we look at long-term ELs, they seem to be struggling in their classes. They have lower GPA, and at the same time, they have low SAT scores, right? So their academic qualifications may not be on par with other students. And when we look at later arriving ELs, they seem to be doing well when we look at GPA, so they're able to demonstrate their skills in classes. However, when they take the SAT, which is English, when they have to take a standardized test in English, they seem to have more difficulty showing their skills. And the final thing that I'm going to show you is the 2-year college persistence. So students that persist through 2 years, they are more likely to get a degree or a credential, right, or an associate degree. So former ELs and later arriving ELs, despite maybe having low SAT scores, they seem to be doing well in terms of persisting in college 2 years later. Long-term ELs might need more support. The ones with IEPs tend to perform similarly to other students with IEPs. So I hope I have given you like an overview of what outcomes look like for ELs in high school. And I think I have painted a picture to show that at least in CPS, active ELs are a heterogeneous group of students that might have different needs, right? So we really think that our work supported by IES grant will be able to give practitioners a more nuanced data or information that will allow them to support the students when and where they need it. And for MEDIAS, we haven't seen how they were doing after they move out of the classification. They do well in high school. And despite having academic qualifications that look similar to never ES, they might need more support to attend four-year colleges if that's their goal. And we know, given some data that we have, that a lot of the students, the vast majority of the students in CPS want to attain a four-year degree at the beginning of ninth grade. So what our work looks like going forward is to explore early warning indicators for each of the subgroups. We are thinking that given the differences we see in outcomes, we might find that we need different data points to support the students. We want to go a little bit deeper into understanding the experiences in high school and the course taking pattern, as some other prior researchers have found that this might be different for different ELs, and also look at how the school context is related to their experiences and their educational attainment. Thank you so much. And now you'll hear from the next presenters.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm joined by my colleagues and additional members of the research team that worked on this study, Kylie Kenner from the University of California, Santa Cruz, and Jorge Maecha from the Community College Research Center. So today we're going to be presenting some preliminary findings that draw on early data from the English Learners in Community College project, which is a 3-year multi-methods exploratory study examining institutional policies and practices related to English learners' enrollment and advancement in ESL and developmental English courses, as well as college-level courses and programs in the city colleges of Chicago. I'll mention that this study was conducted through a partnership between the Community College Research Center and the University of California, Santa Cruz, as well as city colleges of Chicago, and funded by IES. So community colleges serve as a crucial point of entry to post-secondary education for students entering from the K-12 system. And the purpose of this study was to explore the experiences and outcomes of English learners, as well as the policy and practice context at the institutional and district levels. The insights that we will present today mainly focus on what we learned about adult education as a pathway to college credentials, which emerged as a main point of interest as we conducted data collection within the college system. So as George and Marisa mentioned earlier, it's really important to first clarify the terminology and the reasons for using particular labels to describe student populations, as these labels can have various implications on the research and on the populations being studied. So for the purposes of this project, we use the term English learners to describe students who either self-identify or are identified by community colleges as having difficulties in speaking, reading, or writing the English language that prevent them from successfully making progress in academic settings where instruction is in English. In using this term, we recognize that English proficiency is best described along a continuum of skill development, and rather than a dichotomous sort of framing of that development. And these students and their families bring with them diverse resources and funds of knowledge to the college setting. So the main objectives of the project are listed here and focus on identifying and characterizing ELs in community colleges and measuring their academic outcomes, exploring institutional policies and practices related to ELs enrollment and advancement in pre-collegiate and college level courses and programs, examining how English learners experience these courses and programs, and then investigating attitudes and beliefs held by college administrators, faculty, and staff about ELs, language development, and academic potential and progress. The study draws on qualitative data from 64 interviews with instructors, staff, and administrators at 4 colleges within the District of City Colleges of Chicago, as well as the district office. We also draw from student focus groups conducted with 30 students enrolled in varying courses, including credit and adult education, ESL, in addition to college level English, as well as 7 virtual course observations of credit and adult education, ESL. We also collected data from a survey administered to 576 adult education and credit ESL students, as well as 386 non-ESL credit students. And moving forward, further analysis for this project will also be conducted using system-wide and K through 12 administrative data coming from the City Colleges of Chicago, as well as Chicago Public Schools. So with that said, I will turn it to Jorge, who's going to present some findings from our student survey analyses.
Thank you, Julia. Greetings, everyone. My name is Jorge Maecha. I'm a research associate at the Community College Research Center. So I would like to walk you through this table. This is a descriptive characterization of the students that we had in our survey. This is not a representative sample, but we had 962 students in total responding this survey, which was available both in English and Spanish. So I would like to direct your attention to some of the numbers here. I'm not going to go through each and every line of this, but please feel free to explore the table as you see fit. All of the numbers here are percentages except for the first line. Julia, if you could please click once. And you will see that there are differences here in median age between adult education students and credit education students, whether they are ESL or not. As expected, adult education students are a bit older than their counterparts. For the remaining of the table, in the first column, you will see percentages relative to the whole sample. For example, if we go to the next, for example, in this red rectangle, you will see that, for example, employed and full part-time students are 61% of the sample. This that corresponds to 61% of the 962 students, and the other percentages are relative to each sample. For instance, that 42 that you will see in front of employed and full part-time students in the column for adult education students correspond to 42% of the 455 students that we have in the sample. As you can see, we have a fair number of students that are employed either full or part-time, close to 50% of the average. And we have different levels of attainment regarding high school diplomas or equivalencies, much more higher for credit education students than for adult education students, for example. If we go to the next highlight in this slide, Julia, you will see that also, as expected, we have very few adult education students that are financial aid recipients, in contrast with credit students, both ESL and non-ESL. And in the next aspect that I would like to call your attention upon is the percentage of students that are bilingual. And by this, we made a count of a proxy measure of proficiency in English and another language. So we have 71% of students of the whole sample are declared to be bilinguals in English and another language as well. Before going to the next slide, I would like to pinpoint just a couple of facts that are important. There is a large proportion of adult education students that come with previously earned credentials after secondary education. So we have a lot of people with bachelor's degrees and even postgraduate degrees that are part of the adult education student sample that we saw in this survey. And well, let's continue with the next slide, please. This slide is showing you how the different accomplishments that they want to get by being at the Chicago City colleges. And you can see that adult education students declare that they want to earn either a GED or a high school diploma much more than credit students. They are also quite interested in improving their English and upgrading their English for job skills. So each group has different expectations from their passage through college, but I just wanted to pinpoint how different these expectations are, particularly in adult education ESL students. So with this, I'll pass it to Kylie, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Jorge. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. My name is Kylie Kenner. I'm a postdoctoral researcher and instructor at UC Santa Cruz. And given all that we were learning, as Jorge was just discussing, about the complexity of the student population and their backgrounds and their goals, we were also hearing from faculty, staff, and administrators in our qualitative work about some of the challenges that English learners were facing as they moved from adult education into credit coursework. And so some of that tension was arising from institutional silos of adult education and credit programming, which also included status differences and communication challenges. However, the district was doing and is doing a number of things to help mend this divide. So as one administrator told us, the district is trying to become, quote, adult learner inclusive, to be more mindful of this population. The district was also trying to clarify staff roles in thinking about who is supporting students as they are making this move across the various pathways, and thinking about being very intentional about thinking about who is helping them achieve their goals. Again, thinking about the various pathways and goals that they may have. And finally, to amplify supports for all students. There was a notion that only credit students would have access to some of the supports at the district, and the district was being very mindful to make sure that all students, adult education and credit students, understood the resources that were available to them. If you can go to the next slide. Thank you, Julia. And a few other ways in which the district was trying to, or is trying to, support students in these transitions. They were helping to think through staff positions, including a role of the transition specialist, who is particularly supporting them in that trajectory from adult education to credit. Some sites were even building tutoring centers that were specifically there to support adult education students interested in taking credit placement tests, which Julia will discuss in just a moment, and offering a number of programs and even classes that were aimed to support students in their various trajectories. And I will pass it over to Julia to talk a bit more about testing and placement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kylie. So lastly, we just wanted to delve into curriculum and testing requirements of both across both adult education and credit programs. So misalignment between the adult education ESL curriculum and the entry requirements as measured by placement tests into credit programs can limit the number of adult education ESL students who successfully transition and are eligible to enroll in credit-bearing courses. Students who do enroll in adult education with goals to transfer to credit, as well as those who may be encouraged to do so by their instructors and advisors, face the disconnect between two testing and placement systems that assess very different skills. And then in addition to problems associated with placement testing and the use of a single placement test that have been mentioned in prior research, another problematic issue for making this transition from adult education ESL to credit level coursework has to do with the use of placement mechanisms, as I mentioned, that test for different skills. So notably, adult education and credit programs at the City Colleges of Chicago utilize mechanisms that are quite different. Students in adult education are required to take the Life and Work Reading and Listening Series Casas test, and to demonstrate National Reporting System level gains. It's also used for initial placement into one of the 6 levels of adult education ESL. This can be problematic because these Casas tests do not measure the full range of language skills, such as they only measure reading skills instead of the full range of students' linguistic repertoire. So one administrator, as you can see in this quote, explained that Casas is basically just a reading test, but to enroll in credit-bearing coursework, students must take a high-stakes reading and writing placement test that asks them to write an essay. And this disconnect led some English learners into what one administrator had labeled called educational purgatory, wherein students complete adult education classes, but are still not prepared to go forward into credit classes because they cannot complete the college placement exam. So as Kylie mentioned, the City Colleges of Chicago has implemented some supports in order to help with this transition. And so while there are significant challenges with the adult education assessment system and credit placement tests, they've taken proactive steps to really attempt to bridge a disconnect between these two kind of imperfect assessment and placement systems. They've developed test preparation opportunities and course enhancements, including the transitional level that Kylie mentioned earlier, which is one example that prepares students for taking the credit placement test. They have also included a unique learning community, which is a cohort program that frames multilingualism as an asset and offers students a cluster of classes to strengthen their academic English and complete required college courses. Advisors, staff, and faculty are affiliated with the program, recruit English learners from adult education, and enroll students in credit ESL and a college success course in their first semester, as well as other content courses, including math, sociology, and music, that are taught by instructors who are knowledgeable about supporting English learners. And then a different college offers what they call sheltered courses for students enrolled in credit ESL. In these courses, English learners are taught by instructors with knowledge of their primary fields, such as art, history, sociology, and linguistics or TESOL. So these courses in which students enroll while also taking credit ESL allow students to meet their requirements with support from an instructor who is trained to support their language development. And these courses offer opportunities to contextualize learning of the discipline while supporting students as they strengthen their English proficiency. So given these preliminary findings, it's clear that the district has built scholarship opportunities, courses, and programs that are thoughtful of English learners' needs and staffing specialties to shepherd students from adult education to credit coursework. At the same time, there's still a number of challenges that remain, as well as opportunities for support programming and disrupting silos. And I will quickly turn it to Kylie for some takeaways from this research. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. So yes, Julia hit on almost all of these, so I'll go through them very quickly. But as George was introducing our session today, and Julia and I have discussed, as it relates to this project in particular, establishing a district-wide vision for English learner success can create purposeful connections between adult education and credit programs that begin to break down these historical silos. And as Julia was talking through earlier, reforms to traditional college placement systems can be more inclusive of English learners' needs by incorporating measures that distinguish between their proficiency in academic writing and reading in English and their overall academic preparedness. And finally, as I was discussing as it relates to the reforms in the district, early and frequent opportunities for adult education ESL students to learn about and simultaneously enroll in credit offerings is invaluable. So we just really want to highlight those takeaways. And then we'll go to our last slide, which is about our next steps as a project. We're really excited to be offering you very soon a policy brief that really digs into all of these issues that we've been discussing today. And we're also incredibly privileged to have a new chapter of this work to really unpack the experiences of English learners in adult education. So their experiences, and then also with a policy analysis that's looking both at a state level, but also nationally at the experiences of adult education students, and particularly English learners. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your time.
All right, and I'm seeing, I believe I'm seeing a question in the chat, which is also okay, but I'm mainly looking at the Q&A. So, but I do see a question. Do you know what careers ELLs select in 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges? I think, Jorge, I don't know if you have any information on that from the IES study that we conducted, or if any of the other panelists have either data or trends that you have observed around career orientations for college-going English language learners. Jorge, you want to start us out?
Yeah, sure, George. I can give you information about 2-year colleges, which correspond to the sample that we had, and their preferences were around the health professions. On one side, they were also interested in service areas, and I think that ranking third in their interest was education and related activities. So this particular sample, you might recall that this is, although it is it's not a small sample, it's close to 1,000 people, but it is not a representative sample. But this particular sample was someone leaned towards health professions and health related services.
Great, thank you. And I don't know, Marisa or Rebecca, do you have anything to add from, I know you were involved in a variety of projects, but Marisa?
So unfortunately, we do not have information about that. We only observe whether they enrolled, and eventually we are hoping to add more cohorts to the study so that we can actually see whether they get a credential or a degree, but I do not believe we know in which area.
Thank you. Rebecca, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to echo that we don't know. And I think it's something we're, as Marisa said, looking to explore in the city of Chicago, and hopefully in time expand throughout Illinois to know as well. But getting that former EL piece too, to understand students who begin their studies as ELs and turn into former ELs, that's even something I think more innovative that the U of C is leading on. But it's often a way we don't look at the data as well. And just to add a little piece, since I'm a little different than other folks at the table, I think also another element is communicating to the public about these different types of data and having them understand it. I think something else for us to think about in terms of dissemination, impacting policy, and particularly if you want to convince school board members why they should invest in bilingual ESL programs and why this matters. We need to be thinking, retrospectively about data over the long term, and that can be confusing to folks.
Thank you. We have a question about data analysis and data collection, which is what were some specific barriers or hurdles that the different researchers have had to either data analysis or data collection, and how did you navigate those challenges, and what advice do you have for others who might be interested in similar work in their own regions? And just maybe each of the different projects represented in the panel on the panel probably have had different sorts of challenges or hurdles, but would one of the panelists like to start, and then we can go a little bit around the different studies?
I can start. So we did our study on Chicago public schools. So fortunately, we have a data agreement with the Chicago public schools, and we can get the administrative data. So for us, it's not a challenge to collect the data, but I think the challenge for us comes from maybe not having enough information to really dig deeper into some of the pieces that we would like to go a little bit deeper, right? For example, when we classify the students into the different groups, we only observe them whether they have been in CPS and how many years in Chicago public schools, right? I think ideally you would like to know more about when the students come to CPS, what is their status, right? Whether they are refugees, how many years of prior schooling they have had, especially if they come from a, either way, right? Whether they come from another US system or whether they are coming from outside the country, right? Because we know that some of the population have interrupted schooling and that really affects education, right? And that piece we are not able to collect through the data that we have. So that's a little bit of the challenge that we have, or we have encountered.
Thank you.
I would like to add that for us, I mean, for the survey, the issue of response rates, I mean, it's always an issue. We tried several strategies to improve our response rate. The survey was available in English and Spanish, for example. There was a compensation of $25 for taking the survey, which I think it's not a small amount. I mean, it's sufficiently good, let's say, to encourage people to take it. We use a texting platform to remind students about the survey and so on. But even with all of these mechanisms, response rates continue to be like a really pressing issue in this kind of studies. Response rate numbers can vary from 15% to 30%. Usually you're expecting about 30%, which is not good anyway. But this is a specific barrier that I would like to mention. So getting creative or managing to resolve this issue and going above the 30% mark, that would be something really important for future studies in this area.
Thank you, Jorge. Kylie?
Yeah, and I work with Jorge on the English Learner and Community College project, and I think one of the great benefits of our analysis is that we have a qualitative team and a quantitative team, and we are not working in our silos. We have our independent meetings and then come together and really talk about what we're seeing in the data and asking one another questions to really help utilize the other side, the other information to help answer those questions and have some robust insights. I was going to say, though, as the first thing that came to mind in that question was that we've joked quite a bit in our group of getting ready to go to Chicago in March of 2020, and that was the largest barrier to data collection. I think was just this very swift shift to all remote data collection, but we were able to make it work, and I think we're also very fortunate to be able to continue this work through a new grant, and so. But thinking about other areas for maybe other barriers, kind of to what Jorge was saying about a wish list, I think we had a lot of challenges speaking with adult educators sometimes, just given the role that they had in the community college. And so that was another area that we were fortunate when we were able to speak and hear their perspectives as voices that are often muted in the discussions. So that was very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, being part of this research team with Kylie and Jorge, we did the bulk of the data collection during the pandemic on Zoom, but we did have an opportunity just recently to spend a week in the city colleges of Chicago, and it's just incredible what you can learn, and your questions, which of your questions can be answered just by being there and being on site and having formal conversations, but also informal conversations with students and practitioners and administrators. And there is really ultimately no substitute for being there, although I think we were able to collect and analyze a good amount of data even in the midst of the pandemic. We have a question about challenges in supporting learners whose primary languages are less common than others, and in other words, for example, not Spanish. And if so, what are the challenges that the systems are facing, and how are they going about trying to reach a large number of students from a large number of different language backgrounds? And I'm assuming this can be applied to any of the different elementary, secondary, or community college levels. So is there a panelist who'd like to take that one on from really from any perspective around non-Spanish speakers or speakers of less commonly spoken languages?
If I may mention our latest fieldwork in Chicago, we heard about very creative ways in which personnel at the community colleges is trying to address this. And they heavily rely, for example, on Google Translate, because they are able to support students in 2 or 3 common languages that they are used to. But sometimes even the very process of making an application becomes impossible because they had, for example, an influx of students who speak different French Creoles, and they were not trained for that. So as simple as it sounds, but they were relying on tools like that to support students at a very basic level. I realize that your question might be addressing some deeper issues, but what we found on the field is that for this very basic support, they are relying on technology because they don't have the training or the tools to support students that speak these less common languages.
And thank you, Jorge. And I would just add at the community college level, of course, the adult ESL and the credit-bearing ESL programs have long years of experience in working with students from all over the world. And so basically rely on English as a second language or sheltered instruction techniques to reach students at the various levels of English that students come in with. And I don't know if either Marisa or Rebecca want to say anything about the K through 12 level on this point, or we can go on to the last question.
Yeah, I definitely
Rebecca?
think it's something that schools are thinking about tremendously. I mean, we are getting, as a sanctuary city, lots of immigrants bust in. They're tending to be more Central and South American, but of course it tends to play out very geographically, certain pockets that are getting low incident languages. And I know we've been asked to start doing panels, discussions, blogs with the Association of School Board members throughout the state. And I'm trying to bring in specialists who have began newcomer centers so that we can begin kind of an initial what to do. And it's also important to think about how this plays out differently in terms of grade spans. This can be a lot different for young ones that are in a self-contained classroom versus someone that just came in at a high school where you're supposed to change rooms. So there's different kinds of supports, obviously, that we need at different levels. So I think I would say, I was actually approached at our School Board Association conference saying, it's great you're covering ELs in general. And I was thinking more of emergent bilinguals who tend to be young in the early grades. I mean, that's what our statistics are. And I was told, if you did a panel on newcomers, especially low incident languages, you would pack the house. So I am doing that this year and bringing in folks. And there's also been some advocacy, although it didn't go well, a legislative attempt to get more money to our State Board of Education to dole out to schools to support newcomers. We weren't able to get it through, but I'm hoping next year we can be more proactive. But I think it's something we have to think a lot about. And I think we need to think about coordinating this with housing and where folks are being located.
Thank you. We have one more question in the queue, and I know we're technically at time, and I know it's getting late in the East Coast. We're just sort of getting rolling here in the West, but I have been assured by the organizers that this is the last session of the day, so we're not keeping you from any other sessions if you'd like to stay for another 2 or 3 minutes for the final question. But if you do need to go, thank you for joining us again. And it's been great to hear your questions, and thank you for your interest in this important population. But our last question is, it's directed toward Rebecca, but other panelists may have something you'd like to share also. But it was, to what extent has your work to promote enrollment in bilingual education programs come across challenges in finding educators who are qualified to provide bilingual education?
That is the issue that keeps me up at night. Yeah, to one side, it's phenomenal that we've had this research with U of C to show these programs work. And when parents refuse them, it's the problem. But it definitely has been a key issue. We also, most of our English learners are Spanish speaking, and we have the lowest college completion rate of Latinos who would be bilingual that could serve in those classrooms. So it's definitely a double whammy. We do a lot of work right now trying to coordinate scholarships, working on financing COVID money. There were some specific projects that were geared towards the incumbent early childhood workforce to help with 2- and 4-year transfer. And we've worked a lot there to expand eligibility for folks that are bilingual. I did a lot of work with our State Board of Education to get scholarships out to our current K-12 workforce to try and help folks get an endorsement. We also have a large number of teachers that are on provisional license. These could be folks that maybe studied teaching in their home country or are looking to change from one profession into teaching that might not be fully certified, but speak a language other than English. And so we were really trying to gear some of those COVID dollars to provisionally licensed teachers. I think it's a group that's forgotten a lot about. And I know our governor has just put some money forward to help districts in hiring. In our state, it tends to play out very geographically, and it's tied to resources. Lower resource schools have a harder time, you guys know this, recruiting and retaining teachers. We have it's ridiculous in Illinois. We have more than 850 districts, and 180 of them are the ones that have the issues around recruitment and retention. So they're trying to kind of target things geographically. I think this geographic lens is something to consider in future research and advocacy. In our state, even though we have tons of districts, 50% of our ELs are in 10 districts. We're in a segregated state. So for advocacy, we're thinking a lot about how we can take research and target those districts in terms of practice, but also getting information out to families. And I think this connection of research to families is something that often gets left out, but is really important as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. And I'll just add, a number of initiatives in California are looking at the K-12 student population as our future bilingual teacher workforce. So actually doing really designated and intentional outreach and career information, and trying to get even as far down as middle school, to get middle schoolers interested in becoming bilingual teachers one day, and providing them the supports and as Rebecca mentioned, especially financial resources once they actually get to the post-secondary level. But really to try to it's a great way to show youngsters how important their resources are by painting a picture of a future career in education, which is not always what young people are thinking about doing in the future. So thank you all again for joining us and for staying a few minutes late. I know you'll enjoy the rest of the sessions in the conference tomorrow, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Please be in touch with us if you would like to continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to the panelists.
Yeah, thank you, George.
All right, bye.
For organizing things.